Welcome. It's great to see so many familiar faces and guests with us today. We're going to go ahead and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to gather today as Rotarians and as servant leaders who call Sioux Falls and South Dakota home. We are grateful for the freedoms we enjoy and the opportunities afforded us to pursue world-leading science and multidisciplinary research right here within the borders of our great state. Please open our hearts over the next hour to be educated and inspired by the amazing work occurring in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math. Be with us not only as we gather now, but as we go our separate ways to serve our respective businesses, families, and communities throughout the remainder of the week. In your name we pray. Amen. You can be seated. And our family had an opportunity to get away this last week, and it was amazing time to be away. It was also an amazing time for us South Dakotans. We're going to be talking about world-class research here shortly. But how about our ladies teams also playing at a world-class level, not taking a second back seat to anybody. I want to give it up for both the Jacks ladies and the Coyote ladies for playing well into March in one of those teams continuing. So please join me. We have guests amongst us. First, we have Deb Wolf, who is with the Sanford Underground Research Facility. So welcome, Deb. Dwayne Walk is with us from Rotary West. Welcome, Dwayne. And then I actually have a couple guests from First Premier Bank. Daryl Schmidt is our Executive Vice President, CFO. Welcome, Daryl. And Greg. Yep. And also Greg Kummer, who is new to our team and is leading our wealth management effort at First Premier Bank. So welcome, Greg. With it being the last Monday of March, that means our Rotarians are with us for the last time here. We heard from both Johnny and John last week, and we'll hear from Olivia shortly, but please help me in welcoming our junior Rotarians again. Little Rotary business. Dan Kipley is in the back with Bob Weiser, and this is your last opportunity to get raffle tickets. And Dan told me he will take IOUs. We're not even running credit checks. He is your guy in the back. So those dollars, though, do come back to our district to support programming and projects. So please, if you haven't had an opportunity, find Dan and purchase your district raffle tickets. Also, you saw in the email this morning, Rotary International has a conference each year. That conference this year is in the United States. It's actually in Houston. We have one of our Rotarians that is already planning to attend, and we want to hear from you if you are interested or planning to attend. That will be in Houston, June 4th through the 8th. So let Angie know if you plan to attend, and we'll get you connected. At this time, I want to invite Kayla Etram to come forward and introduce our junior Rotarian.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to announce and introduce you to our last Junior Rotarian of March. Please help me welcome Olivia Verstieg from Jefferson. She sent me the list of the things that she does, and then she had to add a couple more because there's so many on the list. So get ready. Here we go. She is involved in the Renaissance Club, EDIT, Salsa, Cancer Awareness, Students Serving Students, Link Crew, and Student Ambassadors. She also has time to work part-time at Fairway and works at Holy Cross Daycare as well. She made an excellent choice in choosing Augustana University to go next year with majors in biology and psychology with the hopes of becoming a neurosurgeon. So please help me welcome Olivia Verstieg.
There are so many things in our lives that make us who we are, but it takes an attentive, driven person to realize what they are composed of. I personally am a dedicated student. I'm a zealous giver and I'm a relentless dreamer. But unfortunately, I didn't realize this about myself until my senior year. I originally attended Roosevelt High School, but for my final year, I chose to transfer to Jefferson. And while it seemed like a big decision then, it was one of the best I had ever made. I saw switching schools as my opportunity to meet new students and step up into a greater leadership position to better impact my community. Currently, I'm serving on the Youth Action Council for our volunteer club Salsa. I've spoken at our Honors Fest and soon to speak at our volunteer banquet. I was chosen to be a part of Jefferson's Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion team, and I'm pursuing my emergency medical technician certification, all while being a full-time student, working 2 jobs, and maintaining my position as valedictorian. It wasn't until I was at Augustana's Bold Leaders Recognition event when I realized that all of my interests and clubs and activities and jobs are actively shaping me into my future person. Every risk I had taken in the past year has led me to step out of my comfort zone and grow into a person that exemplifies their passions on a daily basis. During the event, we went to a series of leadership sessions, all outlining meaningful ways to serve those around us while leading with courage and inclusivity. There was one particular session that stood out to me. I was sitting in this huge lecture hall, surrounded by tons of students I had never met before. Papers and pens were being handed out, and I'm trying to get to know the students around me, until the instructor, in this last meeting of the day, directed us to create our own personal mission statements. Using my past experiences and future aspirations, I wrote down a statement that closely related to my vision for my life. Here's the statement I wrote down. I want to be optimistic about the possibilities, ambitious about the journey, and compassionate towards the outcomes. After finishing our statements, we were instructed to go around and share what we had written. Many of the students there had loved what I had wrote and were almost stunned at the approach I took. And honestly, so was I. I was used to hearing statements like, to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful from Google. Or connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful, like LinkedIn. But to me, I needed something more. I don't always know what dream I'm gonna chase or what I'm gonna do to change the world. Looking back on my statement now, it displays everything I was lacking in the past and represents the things I want to move forward with, no matter what goal I have or what I try to achieve it. While I have built determination and resilience now, I went through my own obstacles to become the person I am standing here today. I wasn't always optimistic about the things that I could achieve. And while I struggled with finding my passion in the past, I've used those bad days to fuel my fire to pursue the good ones. I've realized that the only limitations I'm going to have are the ones that I place on myself. Life is unpredictable. So many things can happen that you've never imagined were possible. By being compassionate not only with what happens, but with yourself, you're creating an ideal environment for you to grow and succeed, something I've lacked in the past. Now, I'm looking forward to attending Augustana University and utilizing my education to become a neurosurgeon in the future. I also look forward to being active in research and hopefully getting the opportunity to cure cancer. While these are extremely ambitious goals, at the end of it all, I am the only one holding myself back from achieving them. As long as I embody the optimism, ambition, and compassion I so missed in the past, anything is possible. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Great job, Olivia. I'm not a brain surgeon, so good luck. I'm glad that there are those inspired to do so. So I have the honor today to welcome a new member. Generally, when I get a chance to stand at this podium and welcome a new member, I use it as a chance to tell an embarrassing story or maybe, make fun. But after seeing the Oscars last night, I'm just going to go straight with positive. And not sure how your right cross is, but I'm just going to tell nothing but good things today to avoid any risk. So Calvin is a member of the South Dakota Department of Tourism and housed here in Sioux Falls. I've known Calvin for a couple years, met him at the tourism conference in Pierre. And probably my best story is we were talking about Rotary because he manages the tourism mentorship program, which is a great program to get those that are coming up in the industry involved. And I've done some things with the mentorship program. And I invited him to Downtown Rotary a few months ago. And on the day that he was set to come as my guest and see what it was all about, Jim Hagan, the Secretary of Tourism, fell ill. And we put Calvin on stage. So his first time, he stepped up and answered the call. So based on his willingness to try new things and help out, I'm excited to welcome as a new member. He's going to tell you a little bit more about himself.
Hey, thank you, Joel. My name is Calvin Blumenthal. Excuse me. With the South Dakota Department of Tourism. So my official title is Industry Outreach and Development Representative, and then our Cultural Heritage Tourism Manager. So I act as liaison to businesses and communities in Southeast and Northeast South Dakota, and then work with the 9 tribes in South Dakota to, enhance tourism development within the BIA boundaries. A little bit about myself. I am from Sioux Falls. I went to grade school at St. Mary's and high school at O'Gorman, so Catholic schools all my life. And then I went to SDSU. Yep, thank you. I went to SDSU, and then after SDSU, I worked at the Del Rapids Chamber of Commerce. Happy to say I was the first and at the time only paid employee there. So got to learn quite a bit, meet some great people like Jesse there. And then I started working for the Department of Tourism and moved to Pierre, where I lived for a year. And then now I'm in Sioux Falls. So looking forward to joining Rotary. I believe that I am a lifetime learner, and this is a great place to learn and connect with people who really are passionate about the community and passionate about learning and continuing to grow as a person. And then I also think it'll help me with my job. So it's sort of a win-win. So thank you to Joel, and thank you to everybody for allowing me to join, and looking forward to being a Rotarian. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel, and welcome once again, Calvin. Optimism, ambition, and compassion. Well done, Olivia. And I believe your parents are here joining you, so welcome. Thank you for being here. One last reminder, the theme for this year when it comes to membership, and this is at a Rotary International level, is each one bring one. You see that in the bottom of each email that you receive from me on Monday morning. But just a reminder, and we're going to hear from our membership chair next Monday to give an update as to where we're at through the year. But we're going to make another push here in April to bring leaders to Rotary to have them be a part of what we're doing here. And just want to remind you of that. And we look forward to get an update from Laura Mitchell next week. Today, we're excited to hear from Stacy Miller. And I'll just give a brief bio on her, and then I'll welcome her to the stage. In early 2020, before any of us knew what COVID-19 was, Stacy Miller was named the inaugural director of the newly formed Sanford Underground Research Facility Foundation, also known as the SURF Foundation. The SURF Foundation invites support for the advancement of underground science and its global impacts. She has held leadership positions at numerous nonprofits, including United Cerebral Palsy of Southern Arizona, Foundation of Community Care, American Cancer Society, and most recently, Girl Scout Dakota Horizons. She was also the owner and director of Bridging Milestones, where she helped families connect resources and helped elderly loved ones stay in their homes for as long as possible. Stacy Miller lives in Rapid City, works in Lead, and is a Rotarian herself of the Rushmore Club out in Rapid City. She's an outdoor enthusiast and an adrenaline chaser. She has run numerous marathons, including one ultra marathon, and has been skydiving. 2 daughters, 7 grandchildren, and we are excited to have you. Thank you for making the trip across the state to be with us today. I want to ask you to join me in providing Stacy a warm downtown Rotary welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Staci Miller. I am the Surf Foundation Director. I have about 20 years experience in the nonprofit industry. I'm a certified fundraising executive, professional development facilitator. I am not a scientist. In fact, there's oftentimes I don't understand what the scientists and engineers are talking about at work, but it's my job to take all of that information and bring it to you. And though I don't have a degree in science or a backgrounding in engineer, my background and passion for science positions me well to share the excitement and the motivation of the fundamental science happening at Sanford Underground Research Facility. It allows me to connect the science that's happening a mile underground with all of you in the community. And most importantly, to inspire donors to give to a mission that supports the future of science right here in South Dakota. So what is surf? We have 223 surface acres where surf resides. So if we have 223 surface acres, how many acres are there underground? Any guesses? Throw out some numbers. 150? Dwayne, you've heard this before. Pop quiz. Any other guesses? 1,000? One more. Throw one more guess out there. 370? 370 mile? Are you given? There are 7,700 underground acres. 370 miles of tunnels or shafts. Isn't that amazing? So Sanford Underground Research Facility came into existence with donations from the Barrick Mining Corporation, the property that we're on, private monies, Mr. Denny Sanford, and the state of South Dakota. Operations today are funded by the U.S. Department of Energy through a cooperative agreement. The Surf Foundation is the philanthropic arm of Sanford Underground Research Facility. We support the mission and the vision through donations from organizations and individuals. So why do we do underground science? Any guesses? It's quiet, absolutely. So 4,850 feet below the surface, a mile underground. You have a mile of rock overhead. It keeps it quiet underground. The perspective of a 5th grader who we did a class presentation with, he said, when discussing the sensitive physics experiments underground and the reason we do it, he said, It's like a big, uncomfortable rock blanket keeping them cozy. And he wasn't wrong. So these next couple slides are going to show you what it looks like underground, give you a sneak peek. It can be everything from clean laboratory space to what you would envision underground being, dark, dirty. This picture is above ground. This is our hoist room. This is the mechanics that control getting people and equipment from the surface a mile underground. You can see by the green area of that picture, that's literally the pilot seat. The hoist room operator sits in that location and he operates the hoist, it's a big cable, and lowers the cage, which is virtually an elevator, down a mile underground. That cage is approximately 12 feet by 8 feet, which means that everything that goes underground has to fit on that cage, fit above that cage, or hang below the cage. Think about the size of the equipment it takes to excavate and breaking it into pieces to get it a mile underground. One of the things that most people don't know about is we also have a wastewater treatment plant on site because the underground fills up with water, right? So we pump water consistently, constantly out from underground. We treat 700 million gallons a day. Annually. That would be a lot. But I do want to share with you, this year, we hit a milestone. 9 billion gallons of water have been pumped underground since 2008. So that's the same as one Olympic-size swimming pool being filled every 8 hours since 2008. All of that water is treated and then discharged locally. The water is treatment and it is in compliant with the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources. We not only work on physics, but we host world-leading research in biology, geology, and engineering. Really, we're providing a space in the environment to support the answer to some of the biggest questions in the world. The universe is made up of matter, right? Everything that you see around you, the cups, the tables, the chairs, you, we're all matter. Only 4% of the universe is made up of matter. The rest, dark matter energy. That is the piece that we don't understand completely. Here's another picture of what it looks like inside one of the experiment areas. And really, one of the biggest experiments that we're working on is understanding neutrinos. This is what we know about neutrinos. They're fundamental particles. 1,000 trillion pass through your body every second. They're produced in stars, particle decay accelerators. They have an unknown mass. We know that they're very difficult to detect. And we know that there's 3 flavors. Think of ice cream: chocolate, strawberry, vanilla. Well, the 3 flavors of neutrinos are electrons, muons, and taus. So I'm going to play a video here for you that tells you a little bit more about the experiment that's happening a mile underground.
13.8 billion years ago, the universe started with the Big Bang. Energy transformed into matter
So my 7 grandkids live. How's that for some special effects? So my 7 grandkids live just outside of Chicago, south of Chicago, Illinois. And so when I talk to them about the science that's happening at work, when they say, "Hey, Gammy, what are you doing?" I'm like, well, can you imagine going from your home in Illinois, shooting yourself through the earth, and landing in my backyard? That's what we're doing at Sanford Underground Research Facility, only with neutrinos. So we collaborate with over 1,400 collaborators, 217 institutions, and 37 nations on this project. The 4 modules, the excavation has started, where those 4 modules will be placed underground. Each module is as tall and wide as about a 4-story building. All of the rock from the excavation is brought up to the surface, put through a rock crusher, put onto a conveyor belt, goes on the conveyor over the highway leading into lead, and gets placed back in the open cut mine that's in existence there. So what's the economic impact that's happening in South Dakota because of Sanford Underground Research Facility? Currently, we have about 190 jobs, 160 jobs annually with the LBNF Dune. South Dakota's investment since 2004 has been approximately $165 million. The federal investment since 2012, $253.3 million. But by 2029, we are expecting a net income impact of $1.6 billion. Household earnings, $572 million, and over 1,000 jobs annually will be created. Not everything we do is underground. We like to take the science from underground and bring it to the surface for the community. Every July, we have a free science festival that happens in Lead. The last 2 years have been virtual. This year will be in person with a virtual component. And we also offer a Deep Talk series October through May. So put this on your calendar. April 21st, starts at 6 p.m. Central Time. You'll have the opportunity to join Executive Director Mike Headley and the members of our field team for an update on the surf operations and the experiments happening. It's live streamed through YouTube and Facebook and Vimeo. Education is a component of everything we do at SURF. We believe that every student deserves high quality, engaging, relevant, equitable, and rigorous science learning opportunities. Science teachers from all over the United States have the opportunity to have the science happening in Lead at SURF in their classroom for free. We put together curriculum in one box and have it delivered to the science teachers throughout the state of South Dakota. In addition to that, we offer classroom presentations. We do field trips. I love this story. So we were presenting to a first grade class up in the northeast part of South Dakota. And we were talking about, why do we do science underground? So this little first grader raises his hand and he says, so we can study the stars. He was on the right track. With a little probing, he expanded on it. When stars die, they let off a lot of particles. And so that's why you want to go underground to study them. This is a first grader. He was right on track. So we asked him, have you ever heard of Sanford Underground Research Facility? Have you ever heard of SURF? Nope. But he clearly knew that scientists wanted to be a mile underground in the laboratories. This is unique because he had never heard about us or what we do, and he probably didn't have the opportunity to explore the knowledge that he has any further simply because it was way beyond his level as a first grader. The work we do is so important, reaching out to students across the state and providing opportunities for those students to learn more about the cutting edge of science that's happening right here in South Dakota. Can you imagine the scientists and the engineers that we're going to have in those future generations because of the work that we're doing today? We also support teachers. We offer teacher professional development. To date, we have worked with 709 teachers from 73 South Dakota school districts. We also have undergraduate opportunities, internships in the Davis Bacall program. Where are these students now? Some of them work at SURF. Some of them work for you. Some of them work for other organizations throughout the state of South Dakota. And because of the opportunities that we gave them to be interns and part of the Davis Bacall Scholars Program, they also work worldwide. What we hear day in and day out from these interns, though, is my internship was extremely valuable, and it was by far the best summer experience of my life. So that brings me to me and the foundation. We support the advancement of world-class science and learning across generations. We have 4 key impact areas that we concentrate on, but we also take on special projects. So the latest project that we're working on is Shungleska Waka, which is Lakota for Sacred Circle. We are building an ethnobotanical garden that is aimed to protect, respect, and understand the history and the culture of the indigenous peoples of South Dakota. The garden features native plant life. There will be a medicine wheel as the focal point, and there will be 4 significant sacred areas highlighted in the garden: Bear Butte, Bear Lodge, Black Elk Peak, and the Badlands, all of which are considered sacred to the indigenous peoples of the region. So what will we use the garden for? We'll be using it for learning, stargazing, gardening next to master gardeners. We'll hear from experts in their field. It's all about connecting the community, but most importantly, it's about cultivating cultural awareness. The garden will provide a unique opportunity for learning in a tranquil outdoor space that honors the extraordinary history and culture that we have here in South Dakota. As part of the fundraiser, there's 4 limited edition prints, each of the 4 sacred areas that will be highlighted in the garden. And oftentimes, as I'm out talking to the public, giving presentations, I'm asked, what is the day-to-day impact of what's going on at Sanford Underground Research Facility? So, because I work with brilliant people, I went to Mr. Mark Hanhart. He's a physicist at SURF, and he shared this with me. Fundamental research is exploring ideas on the very edge of human knowledge, attempting to broaden our understanding of the basic principles of matter and the universe. It's exciting because it often leads in unexpected directions, revealing something not originally sought after or paving the way for in new fields of technology. It's like a savings account with compound interest. Fundamental research happening at SURF is a long-term investment that may not change your life immediately, but it pays off down the road, and the impact is world-changing. Think about the discovery of the atom. And how many decades later the first computer was built. And now today, we hold a computer in our hand every single day. That's fundamental science. Thank you for having me. I'm going to now invite up Mr. Dana Dykouse to join me, and we will answer any questions that you may have. Dana is the chair of the SURF Foundation Board of Directors, and he also sits on South Dakota SDSTA, South Dakota Science Technology Authority. That's a mouthful. So please, feel free to ask us any questions.
Stacy, I'll ask the first question because I get asked it all the time. Can I go underground and see the lab? Do I just have to show up, or why can't people just go down and see what's going on underground?
That's a great question. So safety is our utmost concern. And as you can see from the presentation, there is a lot of excavation going on. So it's not open to the public. However, there are special occasions where we have students and leaders of the nation that need to know more about what's going on underground and see it firsthand. So there are some opportunities here and there. Yes.
What have you learned so far from all the science and experiments that you've had?
You want me to?
Yeah, take
I'll
that
take that one. There's probably about 20 to 40 different experiments going on at one time. They're truly trying to find the nature of dark matter, and that's the long line neutrino from Fermilab shot underground. That's the big one. That's the billion-dollar experiment over 20 years that they're working on. But they are daily and weekly working on other experiments center. One practical one that I can describe since we opened, they produce a very pure form of copper film underground right now that they use in medical equipment. The reason they produce it underground is because with all the particles hitting, it reduces the purity, and it's at an extremely high level. So the production of this pure copper that they're using for medical equipment goes on today. And there are all kinds of other experiments. Again, I'm not a scientist either. Don't ask me what it is, but I often explain to people, ask me about it, and I say, well, Jim, like this, every morning you warm up your Pop-Tart in the microwave. Explain to me after you punch those buttons what happens. Nobody can, but it happens, and it happened because of scientific discoveries.
Absolutely. And when you ask that question, I get that question an awful lot too on a personal level, is what have you learned since you've started working at Sanford Underground Research Facility? And it's mind-boggling how much I've learned. But what I can say is never in a million years did I ever expect that I would be able to use neutrino in a sentence every day of the week that I work. And it's fascinating.
Interesting fact that you mentioned filtering the water. The reason we have to take care of that water is if you go get about a mile underground, it's about 85 to 90 degrees down there. So as the water is pumped out, it is very warm. It's 85 or 90 degrees. So if you dump that right into a creek, it'll kill all the fish. So they have to pump the water out, let it cool before you can discharge it into there. The one thing you filter out of it is iron. If you've ever been out in the Black Hills and seen the red dirt, that red is iron. It's simply iron. There's no other pollutants or anything. You just have to take the iron out of it. We spent probably 2 years trying to figure out a filter. Finally, someone came up with the idea, if you just run the water through sand, the iron adheres to the sand crystals, and that's as simple as that. So you simply run the water through sand, the crystals, or the iron attaches to the sand crystals, and you have pure water. Cool it, and you can dump it into the stream. Yes?
So the funding for the lab obviously came with the initial gifts from T-Denny, Mr. Sanford, and then obviously from the state of South Dakota. But the ongoing expenses for running the lab, that's all federal money, or do you also receive a lot of private money for ongoing expenses for what's the research and things of that sort?
That's a great question. Let me kind of give you the outline. We had, I think it was about 135 million of money from Mr. Sanford, and then the state of South Dakota has a significant investment in that, and some money from the federal government. Most of that money was spent to dewater the mine, because after home states shut down, the mine completely filled up with water. So we spent about 2 or 3 years pumping the water out to dewater it down to 4850. And I don't want to get too lengthy here, but just if you can picture in your mind, 4850 is what they call the crossover. There are 2 big shafts with the crossover. The crossover, when Homestay operated, was basically a city underground. They had the mechanic shops and the electrical shop because, as Stacy said, once you get all that big equipment down there, If something goes wrong, you don't want to haul it back out. So you had to fix it down there. So the crossover at 4850 was the little city that they did all the work on the machinery, and so the cafeteria was and everything underground. Then they went all the way down to 8400 during the mining operations. So that's kind of how it got. Well, after we got it dewatered, spent that initial money, the best way I could describe South Dakota and the South Dakota board is we're like an apartment owner. We own the apartment now, and we have to maintain that apartment complex, and we rent out all this space for experiments. Experimenters come from all over the world for all kinds of different experiments. They might be there for 6 months. They might be there for 20 years as the long line neutrino is scheduled. It costs about, and Stacy helped me here, $14 to $20 million a year for us to run the lab. And that's paid for by the Department of Energy. Then the individual experiments are paid for by various organizations. It could be a college, it could be privately funded experiment, it could be funded by the Department of Energy, whoever. One quick lesson we learned, we thought at first we'd be by the National Science Foundation. You've heard of the National Science Foundation? And the Department of Energy, it was back and forth when we got started. National Science Foundation is made up a bunch of very intelligent, very brilliant scientists. But what they care about is their own experiment and their own type of science. They don't really care about running a big lab. Department of Energy, on the other hand, has a broad perspective. They run like Los Alamos in Mexico, or some of the other they run national labs. So when we got hooked up with the Department of Energy, that kind of locked in our future.
And then the role of the foundation is, of course, to expand those programs that are associated with the lab, specifically the education that we bring throughout the state of South Dakota. And that education, though it is spread very equally throughout the state of South Dakota, we branch out further than that. We've worked with a school in Australia. We've worked with schools in other states. So it's the ultimate goal to bring that science throughout the nation to every science teacher, every grade level that we can.
Yes.
Do you use all three neutrinos, or do you separate out the neutrinos one from the other? And if you do that, how do you do that?
Stacy.
Well, you know what? I know this really brilliant physicist that would be able to answer that for you. I honestly don't know. I know that they're able to identify each of those three different flavors, and through the process of having those neutrinos be transferred through the accelerator to where the physicists actually study it. Yes, they're able to identify those three flavors. I don't know what the process is to do that. In my head, it's like the ice cream where you have the strawberry and the vanilla and the chocolate all the same. Sometimes you take a couple bites of the chocolate, sometimes you take a couple bites of the strawberry. But that's just in my head. I'd have to ask Mark.
You have some boxes for a teacher. Those available for a religious group working with the kids or nonprofit organization? That's first. And second, since all the labs in the Black Hill area, do you guys have any difficulty or disagreement with the tribal leader or indigenous community in there to dig in their land and create this lab?
Yes, we have an agreement with Native American tribes throughout the region that we will not remove any rock or anything from the excavation from the area. And that is why when we were talking about LBNF Doom and the excavation that's going on now, that rock is being taken underground, brought up, crushed, and putting back into the open pit. Because we have that agreement with the tribes that we will not remove any of the rock. The curriculum units for the science, absolutely. If you go to our website under the education, you can get a hold of Deb and her team, and they'll be able to put you in contact with who you need to be in contact with to get the curriculum units and the presentations.
You might want to mention also the garden sits above, there's kind of a butte up on top of the hill above the whole lab property. And that's where the garden is going. And that's a joint effort with the tribal community also.
It is. So when the vision of the Sacred Circle Garden began, we reached out to the leadership and the elders of the local tribes, and they fully supported us building this beautiful ethnobotanical garden, specifically for the education and the cultural piece, to bridge that gap from the science that's happening today to the indigenous stories and knowledge that the Native Americans have had for centuries.
Yes.
Could you expand a little bit on the challenges that the scientists face underground? Like, for one, time. How long does it take to get down there each day? And then you said heat. Are there other challenges that they face in just their day-to-day work in such a strange work environment?
I'd love to start that one. Getting down there, that's fun. I've been down a few times. And so remember, it was an 8x12 box, is that right?
Mhm.
The cage. And it's not an elevator like you'll ride down in the elevator here. It is an open cage that's just a square box. And when you go down, it takes right now about 11 to 13 minutes to go down a mile. You're standing shoulder to shoulder, 3 across, 4 deep. That's how they would do it, 13 minutes. And as you go down, all those miles of acres underground are called drifts. The side where they used to mine the gold are called drifts. And so as you're flying down, water's splashing because there's water all over. You're bouncing. It's not a smooth ride at all. You're bouncing around. And as you go down, you go by these drifts and they're just zipping by. And the first couple times I went down, I thought, I can't, this is like a free fall. We were falling so fast. 11 to 13 minutes. When one of the old miners told me that when they were in mining production, of course, it was important that they get down very quickly. The faster they got people up and down, the more productivity they'd get out of them. They do that ride in 3 minutes. They said every morning when they jumped in the cage and they let her go, they said all 12 guys' feet came off the ground. You had your lunchbox between your legs, your feet came off the ground, and you'd take it down in 3 minutes. And they said they called it a daily amusement ride because you just zipped you down there.
So one of the biggest challenges, I think, is because it's not easy to get a mile underground. So we have specific times that the cage goes down and comes up. So one of the challenges is you can't forget anything. If you forget your lunch, you're out of luck. And I think one of the challenges as well, especially in the wintertime where the days are shorter, you're going down when it's dark. Sometimes you're not coming up until it's dark. Underground, how Dana described, when you exit that cage, in front of you, it's called Governor's Corner, and in front of you are the dirt drifts, just like the mining day. You go to the right, you scrub off your shoes, you go through some doors, you scrub off your shoes again, and it's opened into this bright, beautiful, white laboratory, just like what you would see at a hospital. So very diverse.
One of the interesting things about Home State Mine that we learned is the reason it was such a successful gold mine is if you think about it a minute, if you've ever been out there, it sits up on a hill. So the mine is actually cut into this mountain, and clear down in the valley, they could dig out a drift to the outside. Well, why was that important? It was a way you could ventilate this mine. So what they would do is they put fans at the bottom and suck the air down the shafts, and that's what ventilated the mine. Very few mines in the world are like that. Most just go straight into a mountain or go down into the ground, where this one is actually on a mountain that's above, and you could draw the air out and keep it cool. They moved the ventilation from drift to drift because it's so hot down there. My wife says it's so warm, I'm getting closer to some of my passed away relatives. So warm down there, getting real close.
Yeah, there are restrooms down at the underground levels, porta potties. basically is what they are. But there is electricity, there is Wi-Fi. They do have microwaves so they can heat up their lunch.
Are there other labs in the world that are as deep as this one?
This would be the deepest lab in the world, and there are 2 or 3 other ones underground. A couple of them are working mines already, so they're not dedicated just to this. So this is one of the key ones. One of the things I learned about this is the United States has basically lost their lead in basic research, as you described. Physics is one of the last areas where we conduct basic research in the United States. Most everything else has gone throughout the rest of the world, and that's the only thing where we lead the world in basic research. That's why it's so important to us, and that's why we get so much funding from the government, because the scientific community knows how important that is, that they do that research here.
And it's right here in South Dakota.
Oh, I forget the gentleman's name, you probably know. Long before this all started, the guy that first discovered neutrinos,
Ray Davis.
Ray Davis, was a Nobel Prize winner, and home state had allowed Ray Davis was it in the 60s?
Yeah, I believe so.
In the 1960s, to go down and do experiments. And so one of our caverns down there is named the Davis Cavern, and that's where that first Nobel Prize in discovering neutrinos was made many, many years ago.
I have a question. You say that your lab space is leased. Is that kind of the sense of what you're
That
saying?
concept, yeah.
Okay. Is it full? How do companies or people get into that space if they're interested?
Yeah. So like I said, there's thousands of miles of drifts, right? Over 7,000 miles of drifts. Primarily, we're at the 48, 50 level. That's where we talk the most about the science that's happening. But there's other levels above, and there's the potential for other levels below as well. And so if there's organizations, other scientists in the world that are interested in coming to Sanford Lab, then you just get with our executive director, Mike Headley, and through the board of directors and discussions, then we can look and see if it's a good fit.
So if you were to look at 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, thank you. So if you were to look at 10, 20, 30 years down the line, is the mission consistent with what it is now, or does it change? Does it grow? What do you see in the future? Well, the real anchor was the long line neutrino, the Fermi lab to lead South Dakota discovering dark matter and doing that. That was really what solidified the lab, because it gave us 20 years of funding and really made it. There's all other types of a lab space that will be used for a lot of things. So I would say the vision for the future will be to operate the lab, host the long line neutrino project, and then the other half is the educational outreach. And Stacy, you might mention, we see that being able to expand through the Institute and providing STEM education for students.
Yeah. The vision truly is consistent from the beginning that we will be the world-leading underground science laboratory. In addition with that is the education piece that is in every component of what we do. And that will continue to grow and grow and grow. And that was the vision of bringing the STIR Foundation on board, was so that that component can continue to grow and be impactful.
I got finished with one story that will make South Dakotans proud. When we first started the underground, I mean, it was just an idea. You can always thank Governor Rounds for that idea. I was at the governor's pheasant hunt when he and Denny Sanford sat at the table and said, "What's the next big thing for South Dakota?" And Governor Rounds said, "Well, we could turn this into an underground lab." And they started talking numbers, and they came up with the numbers. The South Dakota legislature stepped up. But when we first got this organized, you can thank people like Dave Bozade, Tom Adam, Paul Christians. We're all on that board. Good, solid South Dakotans. And of course, the scientists of the world wouldn't trust a bunch of South Dakotans to do this. So every dollar had to run through Cal Berkeley, because obviously in Cal Berkeley, they are so much smarter than all of us in South Dakota. That lasted about 6 months. And the Tom Adams and the Paul Christians and the Dave Bozades of the world convinced them that no, this is best run through South Dakota. And as a little side note, Fermilab has to develop their part of sending the neutrinos. We have to work on part of our side of receiving the neutrinos. We were doing it so efficiently that I am proud to say that today, after about a year and a half, a South Dakotan is in charge of straightening out their half of the project and getting it done. So we have executed very well.
Stacy, thank you for your leadership at the foundation, and Dana, thank you for your leadership over the last 14 years at the South Dakota Science and Technology Authority, which owns the lab, and you're part of that governing board. So we appreciate you being here to share with us another opportunity for us to be proud as South Dakotans of the world-class work that's being done right here in our backyard. Turning towards next week, we are 15 days from today from Election Day, and we're going to have 2 at-large city council candidate conversations, starting with at-large A next Monday, followed by at-large B the following Monday. So next Monday, Vani Harari will lead a conversation. The candidates, Bobby and Andrera, Janet Brecky, and Dr. Sarah Cole, followed by the next Monday, at-large B candidates, Pam Cole and Rich McCurris. So we'd ask you to come back and be with us the next 2 Mondays. And with that, have a great week. Thank you.